Today, we're going to delve into a dark chapter in recent history, the 2011 Norway attacks. On July 22nd of that year, a single horrific act of violence shattered the peace of a nation known for its tranquility and progressive values. Norway, a country nestled in the heart of Scandinavia, has long been admired for its stunning landscapes, its commitment to social welfare, and its peaceful way of life. It's a place where people feel safe, where children play freely, and where trust is a cornerstone of society. But on that fateful summer day, that sense of security was violently disrupted. Anders Behring Breivik, a far-right extremist fueled by hateful ideologies, unleashed a horrifying attack that would leave an indelible mark on Norway and the world. In a coordinated act of terror, Breivik targeted not just the physical structures of the country, but its very soul. The attacks unfolded in two devastating parts. First, a bomb ripped through the heart of Oslo, Norway's capital city. The explosion, targeting government buildings, sent shockwaves through the nation, symbolizing an attack on the very foundation of Norwegian democracy. But the true horror was yet to come. Hours later, Breivik descended upon a peaceful summer camp on Utoya Island, a gathering place for young people affiliated with the Workers' Youth League, AUF. This idyllic setting, meant for political engagement, learning and friendship, became a scene of unimaginable carnage. The scale of the tragedy is almost incomprehensible. In this single day, 77 innocent lives were taken. They were teenagers with their whole lives ahead of them, government workers simply doing their jobs, and bystanders caught in the crossfire. The attacks left Norway reeling. A nation known for its peaceful nature was forced to confront the darkness that can lurk within its borders. The world watched in disbelief and horror as the images of devastation emerged from a country not accustomed to such violence. But amidst the grief and anger, the resilience of the Norwegian people shone through. They responded with a wave of unity and compassion, a testament to the very values that Breivik sought to destroy. In the aftermath of this tragedy, many questions arose. How could such an attack happen in a country with such strong social safety nets? What drives someone to commit such unimaginable acts of violence? What lessons can we learn from this dark chapter to prevent similar tragedies in the future? In this video, we'll explore the events of July 22nd, 2011 in detail. We'll delve into the background of Breivik and his twisted ideology. We'll examine the attacks themselves, the victims, and the response. And finally, we'll look at the long-term impact of this tragedy on Norway and the world. By understanding the past, we can work towards a future where such acts of violence never occur again. Part 1. The Oslo bombing. Before the horrific events of July 22, 2011, Anders Behring Breivik was a seemingly ordinary figure. However, beneath the surface, a dangerous ideology festered. But Breivik wasn't a monster out of a horror movie. He was a seemingly ordinary man consumed by a far-right extremist ideology. He subscribed to a twisted worldview that demonized immigration and multiculturalism, believing them to be threats to Norwegian culture and identity. This ideology wasn't formed in a vacuum. Breivik spent years actively engaging in online forums frequented by other extremists. Here, he honed his hateful views, feeding on conspiracy theories and anti-immigrant rhetoric. He wrote a rambling manifesto outlining his justifications for violence, a chilling document that would later provide a glimpse into his warped mindset. Fueled by this extremist ideology, Breivik meticulously planned his attack. His target? The very heart of Norway's democracy, Oslo's government district. This wasn't a random choice. By striking at the seat of power, Breivik aimed to cripple the Norwegian government and send a clear message of defiance. On that fateful Friday, July 22nd, Breivik parked a white van laden with explosives near the main government building. It was a time of day when government offices were bustling with activity, ensuring maximum devastation. At 3:25 p.m., the bomb detonated with a deafening roar. The explosion ripped through the surrounding buildings, shattering glass windows and sending debris flying. A thick plume of smoke billowed into the sky, a stark contrast to the normally serene Oslo skyline. The once vibrant government district was transformed into a scene of utter chaos. The immediate aftermath was a desperate scramble for survival. People, battered and dazed, stumbled out of buildings, their ears ringing from the blast. Smoke filled the air, making it difficult to see, adding to the confusion. The injured lay amidst the wreckage, with cries for help echoing through the streets. Emergency services descended upon the scene with remarkable speed. Ambulances rushed the wounded to hospitals, while firefighters battled the flames that had erupted in several buildings. Police secured the area, searching for survivors and any potential further threats. The news of the bombing spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves across Norway and the world. Images of the devastation began flooding news channels, painting a grim picture of the attack's impact. As the dust settled, the horrifying reality sank in. 8 innocent lives were tragically cut short. Hundreds more were injured, some facing life-altering physical and emotional trauma. The damage to buildings, while significant, paled in comparison to the human cost. Authorities launched a massive investigation, combing through the wreckage for clues. The bomb site became a hive of activity, with forensic investigators meticulously collecting evidence. The discovery of Breivik's manifesto and online activities pointed towards a premeditated act of terrorism. But the question remained, who was responsible for this horrific act? In the following hours, a chilling realization set in. While the nation mourned the victims of the Oslo bombing, they were unaware that an even more horrifying event was about to unfold on a remote island far away. Part 2. The Utoya Island Massacre. Just a few hours after the Oslo bombing, a seemingly idyllic scene on Utoya Island, located northwest of the capital, was about to be shattered by unimaginable horror. Utoya was the location of a summer camp organised by the Workers' Youth League, AUF, a political youth organisation affiliated with Norway's Labour Party. The AUF summer camp was a yearly event for teenagers, a chance for them to engage in political discussions, learn about social issues, and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded peers. Imagine a gathering of young, bright minds, full of hope and a desire to make a difference in the world. This was Utoya before Breivik arrived. The victims of the Utoya massacre were primarily teenagers, aged 14 to 19. These were not hardened soldiers or political figures. They were students, aspiring artists, and future leaders whose lives were tragically cut short. These young people, filled with hopes and dreams for the future, were about to become unwitting targets in a horrifying act of violence. To truly understand the impact of this attack, we need to remember their names, their dreams, and the potential that was lost. Meanwhile, unknown to the unsuspecting campers, Anders Behring Breivik was making his way towards Utoya. Disguised as a police officer, he arrived on the island by ferry. He claimed to be part of a team sent to investigate the Oslo bombing, a lie that some of the attendees, initially confused by the news reports, briefly believed. However, his charade wouldn't last long. At around 5:22 p.m, the first chilling sound of a gunshot shattered the peace of the island. Breivik had begun his murderous rampage. Panic erupted as the campers, initially bewildered, realized the horrifying truth. They were under attack. The island, once a place of laughter and camaraderie, became a scene of unimaginable chaos. Dozens of teenagers were desperately searching for cover. Many sought refuge in the nearby buildings, hoping the walls would offer protection against the relentless gunfire. One of the survivors, AUF member Trond Myhre, recounted the chilling moment he realized something was wrong. Suddenly, we heard a loud bang. We thought it was fireworks at first, but then we saw people running in a panic. The island, surrounded by water, offered limited escape routes. Many young people attempted to flee by swimming across the freezing lake, some sadly drowning in the attempt. Others hid in cabins, behind rocks, or wherever they could find refuge. As Breivik methodically hunted down his victims, stories of heroism and resilience emerged from the tragedy. The story of Movsar Jamayev and Rustam Daudov, two Chechen teenagers attending the camp, exemplifies the courage and heroism displayed by some of the victims. Despite the danger, they threw rocks at Breivik in an attempt to stop him. Recognizing their limitations, they then focused on saving lives, leading 23 children to a hidden cave to shield them from the attacker. The stories of survival from Utoya are as harrowing as they are inspiring. Many, like the group that sought refuge in the schoolhouse, a locked building that Breivik was unable to penetrate, managed to escape with their lives. Many others also displayed incredible bravery. Some, familiar with the island's terrain, swam across the freezing waters to escape the gunfire. Others hid in bushes and crevices, holding their breath as Breivik stalked the island. But many of the campers unfamiliar with the island layout were left desperately scrambling for cover. Some attempted to swim across the freezing waters of the lake surrounding the island, only to be targeted by Breivik's relentless gunfire. Meanwhile, on the mainland, the sounds of gunfire carried across the water, alerting local residents to the unfolding tragedy. Individuals like Marcel Gleff, a German tourist staying nearby, sprang into action. Recognizing the sound of gunfire, he didn't hesitate. He jumped in his boat, repeatedly returning to the island to pull terrified survivors out of the water. He is credited with saving up to 30 lives. Hager Dahlen and Toril Hansen, another couple vacationing in the area, also joined the rescue effort, with Dahlen coordinating from the shore while Hansen made multiple trips in their boat to pull survivors from the water. Local resident Casper Elaug, upon hearing reports of the attack, disregarded what he initially thought might be a prank and made multiple trips to the island in his boat, rescuing dozens more. These acts of bravery and quick thinking by both the survivors and local heroes played a vital role in saving lives. The response to the Utoya attack was tragically delayed. Police resources were stretched thin after the Oslo bombing, and it took them over an hour to reach the island. This delay allowed Breivik to continue his rampage for a much longer period than necessary. When the heavily armed police unit finally arrived on the island, Breivik initially hesitated. Upon being ordered to surrender, he laid down his weapons. However, this surrender didn't come before he had claimed the lives of 69 innocent people, most of them teenagers. Hundreds more were left physically and emotionally scarred by this horrific event. The aftermath of the Utoya massacre was a scene of utter devastation. Survivors were left struggling to grapple with the horror they had witnessed. The idyllic summer camp, meant to be a space for young people to build a better future, became a symbol of senseless violence and loss. The delayed police response and the overall handling of the situation remain controversial in Norway. However, one thing is clear. The actions of Breivik and the subsequent response forever changed Norway and sent shockwaves across the world. Part 3. Aftermath and Impact. The aftermath of the 2011 Norway attacks was a period of profound national mourning. Flags flew at half-staff across the country, a somber symbol of the collective grief. A national day of mourning was declared, bringing Norway together in a shared expression of sorrow and solidarity. Across the nation, memorials sprouted up in public spaces. Flowers, candles, and messages of condolence became a common sight, a silent tribute to the lives lost. Spontaneous gatherings saw Norwegians come together, sharing memories of the victims and drawing strength from each other. This outpouring of grief wasn't solely a domestic phenomenon. The world watched in solidarity, offering Norway its support. Messages of condolence poured in from leaders across the globe. Memorial services were held in major cities around the world, demonstrating a united front against violence and extremism. In the midst of the darkness, a spirit of unity emerged. The attacks, instead of tearing Norway apart, brought the nation closer together. This resilience, a cornerstone of Norwegian society, became a symbol of hope and defiance in the face of tragedy. As the nation mourned, the wheels of justice began to turn. Anders Behring Breivik was apprehended at the scene of the Utoya massacre and charged with terrorism and murder. The trial, which began in April 2012, became a global spectacle, with the world watching intently as the motivations behind these horrific acts were laid bare. Breivik remained unrepentant throughout the trial. He clung to his twisted ideology, justifying his actions as a necessary response to multiculturalism. His chilling testimony offered a glimpse into the dark depths of far-right extremism. In August 2012, Breivik was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 21 years in prison, the maximum penalty under Norwegian law. This sentence, however, was considered an extension of a preventive detention sentence, meaning Breivik could be held indefinitely if deemed a continued threat to society. The 2011 Norway attacks left an indelible mark on Norwegian society. The nation that was once known for its peaceful nature and strong social safety net was forced to confront the darker sides of human nature. For the survivors, the trauma of the attacks continues to cast a long shadow. Many struggle with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. The physical and emotional scars remain, a constant reminder of the horrific ordeal they endured. The attacks also sparked a national conversation about security measures. While Norway has traditionally maintained a relatively open security posture, the attacks led to a review of police preparedness and response times. Increased resources were allocated to counter-terrorism efforts, and law enforcement agencies were given more tools to investigate potential threats. However, striking a balance between security and preserving the open and democratic society that Norway cherishes remains a delicate task. The role of the media was also brought into question. The attacks were covered extensively by international news outlets, raising concerns about the potential glorification of violence. A discussion emerged on balancing the public's right to information with the need to avoid fueling extremist narratives. A conversation about mental health and radicalization emerged as well. How could such an atrocity be committed by a seemingly ordinary citizen? Mental health services were bolstered with a focus on early intervention and prevention. There was also increased emphasis on fostering dialogue and promoting critical thinking skills to counter extremist ideologies. What can be done to prevent similar radicalization in the future? These are difficult questions with no easy answers. However, by fostering open dialogue and promoting tolerance, Norway hopes to mitigate extremist ideologies that threaten its peaceful society. The Rose Marches held across Norway, where participants wore white roses in a powerful display of unity and defiance against hate, became a symbol of the nation's unwavering spirit. The victims' families also played a crucial role in the aftermath. While facing unimaginable grief, many survivors and families of the deceased became vocal advocates for peace and tolerance. They established foundations in their loved ones' names, promoting education and dialogue as tools to combat extremism. Their courage and resilience served as an inspiration to many. But the attack was not just a Norwegian tragedy, it resonated on a global scale. The attacks forced nations worldwide to re-evaluate their preparedness for domestic terrorism and extremism. The issue of far-right extremism, previously considered fringe, became a pressing concern for security agencies around the world. However, the attacks also highlighted the power of unity and compassion. The international outpouring of support for Norway served as a reminder of our shared humanity and the importance of standing together against violence and hate. The 2011 Norway attacks were a horrific act of violence that tested the nation's very core. The attacks claimed 77 innocent lives and left countless others physically and emotionally scarred. However, the story doesn't end here. The fight against extremism continues, and the lessons learned on that dark day are still relevant. The main question still remains: how do we prevent such tragedies from happening again? We must work towards a world where open dialogue, critical thinking skills, and a commitment to understanding are prioritized. By fostering tolerance and challenging extremist ideologies, we can create a future where violence has no place. Thank you for joining us on this difficult but important journey. Let's remember the victims, their families, and the unwavering spirit of the Norwegian people.